Liverpool are the only team yet to concede a goal this season, but Slot's tactics extend well beyond the confines of a defensive approach, and the tactical changes that he's made to the entire team so far have seen new exciting roles for key players, a different way of progressing the ball, and a redemption arc for a player who had been written off. So with 3 wins out of 3 against Ipswich, Brentford and Manchester United, the interesting thing about these wins is that they were all slightly different, and even with only 3 months at the club, you can start to see the tactical complexities of Slot's side and why they are a multi-dimensional team in the way that they play. The Ipswich game is really interesting because despite creating 6 big chances, they started the game very slowly with 0 big chances created in the first half. So what was the difference in the second half and what clicked into place? This section of the game demonstrates it perfectly. We need to focus on 2 players in particular here, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Luis Diaz. Luis Diaz plays a pass over to Trent. Trent's got his arm up. And with this Ipswich side, they were looking to press really, really hard. They were looking to be as positive as possible. So that pass comes across. As a normal right back, I think what you would generally expect is someone to sort of then drive and attack that space, right? But as the pass goes on, what's fabulous about Trent, and one of the principles, I think, when it comes to Arne Slot and his team, it's about understanding the opposition and their body language to a point, right? So what Trent does brilliantly here is that he actually sort of comes in a little bit instead of staying out wide, and he plays a one-time ball to Szoboszlai. And what he does by doing that is that he takes 1, 2, 3, 4 players completely out of the game. And we're now through that first line of a press. But as we move it on, what you start to see is that instead of that pass coming out here, Trent follows his run and uses the body weight of Luongo to go around the other side of him. And therefore, he then gets the ball from Szoboszlai and he then drives into this space. And this is something that Arne Slot likes to do. He allows the opposition, although his own team looks to sort of squish the opposition in a press, but he's happy to come into this central area, happy to go in to then go out. And that's exactly what happens. And it's super, super clever. And it allows someone like Trent to be in a bit of a central area here instead of out here, which is something very different for him. But with his vision, it allows Liverpool to be utterly on the front foot, and likes of Jota, Luis Diaz and Salah, most importantly, to get involved. And it's that switch up into one-touch play that absolutely takes out so many Ipswich players. One touch, and then one pass into Jota. And the great thing about Jota as a central forward is that, yes, okay, he's going to be asked to be playing here initially, but he's so comfortable peeling wide and driving into these wide areas for the team. And what that does is it makes the defence have to really, really get back. And actually, look, you've got every single player on the pitch for Ipswich with pretty much their back to goal, in trouble. But at the same time, absolutely acres of space because of that stretching of someone like Jota. And so the pass then goes to Jota, but Trent again is able to continue his run, and also by going centrally initially at this moment, what it means is that at this moment, you've now got someone like Leif Davis who's been sort of sucked in himself. And so now, despite being stretched, you've actually still got a very narrow team because you've come centrally. And if he wanted to, Jota could have played that cross to here, and Leif Davis would have been in a lot of trouble because he would have been on the blind side of Salah because they were getting stretched here. People talking about Arne Slot and the build-up phase and a little bit more control, yes, but when they break, they absolutely break. And so from the first moment there, 54-32, to 54-45, you've created something and really stretched the play in 13 seconds. And whilst this didn't work in terms of scoring a goal, the signs were there because 5 minutes later, they scored the first competitive goal of the Slot era. So Konaté has the ball right here, and what happens next is extremely clever, and it's a pattern that we should be keeping an eye on for the way that Slot likes to attack, and in particular, likes to attack against teams that are looking to press against you. Gravenberch gets the ball. We've done a video talking about Gravenberch and the way that he's able to drive with the ball. Absolutely fantastic. Gets the ball, is able to utilise almost the press of Amari Hutchinson here, use him with his arm out, open up his body, and drive into space just for a second because he sees a good pass that's on. And so the natural thing for the Ipswich defence to then want to do is to be as narrow as possible, because then that means that you've got to kind of go round. Is this a better way of doing it? What you don't want is people going through. So Gravenberch plays that pass to Salah. Now, what's really important to say here is Salah's positioning here. He's not out here. He's not out wide already. But on the other side, you've got Luis Diaz, who is as wide as possible. And that is to look to kind of stretch this back four of Ipswich as much as possible. But by staying here, Salah gets Leif Davis exactly where he wants him to. When he then pops the ball off to Trent, he spins. He spins straight away. It's utterly premeditated. Now, if you're thinking of a back four, sometimes, you know, your defenders have got to go and be tight, right? And what you want is your centre-back on your side to be able to cover. And Jacob Greaves would love to be able to cover. But he can't. Because of who? Yep, you've guessed it. Szoboszlai. By Szoboszlai being there, and actually someone who's got the legs to run that channel himself, but also that ability to stand still and pick up the ball there, it makes life so hard for Jacob Greaves. So he makes that move. He knows he's making that move, right? And so Leif Davis goes, right? Salah goes in to go out to go in. That's the level we're talking about. All the while on the other side of the pitch, as we spoke about, it was about stretching it. Luis Diaz staying as wide as possible. Jota staying on the blind side of the other centre-back. For a defender, you want to be able to see the person you're marking. But in fact, the Liverpool player can see the back of his shirt. He can see the back of his shirt. He can see the back of his shirt. And he can see the back of his shirt. Horrible. Horrible if you're a defender. So the ball gets played in. And Salah, one touch, which again, another important thing. If you can play a simple pass once, is able to play that ball to Jota, and Jota is able to tap it in with no markers around him because he's worried about him, and he's now had to come over to him, and Jacob Greaves is all at sea. Stunning play. The Brentford game is the next, and whilst we're going to break down a goal, there's actually a potential weakness that could be exploited here if teams are quick enough to do it. We'll analyse the goal first, but try and spot the weakness along the way if you can. So Aya is playing left back. He has the ball here. Liverpool want him to pass the ball into a central area, and this is why Szoboszlai is stood where he is, to force the ball inside. So once the ball is played in that central area, that's what's called a pressing trigger. And the pressing trigger, I guess, for Liverpool, I think a lot of the time, are two things. It's one, a ball centrally, kind of along the floor, with someone with their back to goal. But then secondly, a backwards pass within that area as well. And so what they then do is they really look to squeeze the opposition. And you see players from all over, and also included in this is Trent Alexander-Arnold looking to squish and put pressure on the opposition. And what they do within this as well is that they always look to have this four-man pressing line. And this should have been a warning for Manchester United. And the reason for this four-man pressing line is that it makes it really, really difficult to play anything through the middle. And because Brentford lose the ball then in a central area, it makes it very easy for Liverpool to win the ball back. And when they then win the ball back, it allows them to attack aggressively with those players, because you've got four players with the ball forward and outlets as well. Their ability to make the pitch so small in central areas is largely down to Trent having that freedom to step into midfield and press the ball. And this is clever because it means that Liverpool have four central pressers in midfield whilst not having to ask one of their forwards to sort of come back and join. And then that means that when you do win the ball, you have all of your forward players kind of free to then go again and attack the back line of the opposition. But did you spot the weakness? Well, to highlight this, we need to go back to before Brentford lost the ball. With Trent stepping in centrally from right back, you can see him here kind of looking to get at the opposition here. There is space to exploit in the areas in behind him, which has always been a thing with Liverpool. But to do this, I think with Brentford, it was a bit of a problem. And actually, this is a bit of a red herring as a clip, and because of two things. One, yes, the ball was won in a central area, But actually, the pass that Norgard looks to play is actually one here. If we move it along, the pass here, he actually looks to play a chipped ball into this area here. And Aya does look to make a move. Now, the press of it made it difficult for him to play the pass, and he ends up hitting his own player there instead of getting it over and into that space. But against a different kind of team with strength on that left-hand side, this could become a bit of a weakness. If you imagine a team like Fulham, who've got some good passers, good technical players, but also someone like Anthony Robinson, who's willing to bomb on like that and not allow Liverpool to get themselves back and can hurt the opposition, that could be something that hurts Liverpool down the road. There's one player that has really impressed me, and after last season, I didn't even know if he had a future at Liverpool or not, but he has been central in everything that that was a pun. Just wait. For everything I'm about to reveal, everything that Liverpool have done this season, and that's Ryan Gravenberch, because he's playing really central. I know he always was. You get the point. Gravenberch's averaging 3 carries into the final third per 90 so far this season. But it's where this is happening, which is, I think, fascinating. And it's why it's so useful to Liverpool. In terms of those numbers going forward, again, what I really like and what I think is an added asset when you've got someone like Gravenberch who's able to get the ball and drive. Now, this is a moment when Casemiro, of course, gave the ball away. And we've spoken about those players who are willing to make those runs at the opposition. And again, we've spoken about defensive pain. What's really difficult and what's kind of a bit of a new wave, I guess, in terms of central midfielder is the fact that generally there are certain players you'd go, I'm going to go to you because you're not a dribbler. You're not going to drive the ball. You're not going to skip past me. But in someone like Gravenberch, I think for the back line, it makes it really, really difficult for them to understand what to do because you've got one set of players stretching it and maybe going past you at some point. But at the same time, you can't go to him properly because, I mean, he's absolutely got it within him just to go and skip past you. And so that just makes it very, very difficult, but it also allows Liverpool to drive through the thirds really quickly. And Gravenberch's license to carry the ball, to turn on the ball when he receives it from the defence, I think it's something that it just allows Liverpool to transition so quickly with numbers and then allows them to get an overload like this, which is an absolute dream for any team. However, I've got a bit of a bold claim, and I think it's just part of the ebb and flow of football. He will try that initial move at some point. He will lose the ball, and a goal will inevitably come from that. But I think with the amount of times that he's doing it and how devastating it can be and how that then plays into the mind of the defence, I don't think it's something to worry about. Against Manchester United, we saw a different side to Liverpool because in this match, they actually had less possession than their opponents for the first time this season. But the way that they dealt with this and the way they pressed, it gave us an insight into how they don't necessarily need the ball to be successful in their attacks. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Because one area, and again, it's another weakness because we wanted to talk about how it's not all going to be roses for them and teams are going to be smart enough to find something. It's going to be about how they cope with long balls, because I think it's an interesting one, because it could be something that teams could look to do against them this season, because it means that they're in less danger of being pressed and losing the ball in dangerous areas as well. And this is an example of when Manchester United did that. And the reason that Onana ended up playing this pass was because of just a really strong press against them anyway. That ball wasn't kind of available to him. So Arne, of course, has got the ball right here. He's then going to make this long pass. And Delo actually wins the header here. But I think two things I really want to touch on, actually, is that once that long pass is played, first of all, in terms of a weakness, I think there's something in the second striker and the movement of that second striker in terms of being in this sort of space in between the double pivot and that back line from a long ball. But this, of course, is Delo right here. Now, if you imagine Delo was a proper striker, you've got a second striker buzzing around him, then this could be really good. And also, I think if you had someone like, it was part of the plan, you've got Rashford knowing that long ball's on its way, you've got a Chris Wood who's going to flick the ball on or chest it down to Morgan Gibbs-White or Elanga, let's say, then I think that's something that could be quite difficult, because you've got someone like Trent who's kind of making his way back for the team, and there is that space in between. But it's not a forward. It's Delot going to that, that shred of information that we're able to get from Arne Slot in that interview afterwards, where he's talking about the fullbacks staying high and how that's a great option. Is those, I guess, simple messages to the team and the just football intelligence of this Liverpool side and the vision that a lot of these players have, that then lends itself to a devastating counter-attack from a defensive position. So Trent, who doesn't get enough credit for his defensive work, has worked back and he's ready to cover in behind. Delot actually kind of wins the header against Konate, and then Trent gets the ball. But Trent is also smart enough and has been told, and if in the meeting before and in the plan before, we're going to have Luis Diaz high, we're going to have Salah high, because we think that they play their fullbacks too high, so there will be space in between. When Trent then in that moment sees Delot up there, he goes, well, he's not, he can't be back, can he? He can't be back in that left-back position dealing with Salah. And he's got that brilliant vision to then play that pass straight away. Salah knows this, of course, as well. And, of course, he's got the ball straight away. But one person that we haven't focused on this video and deserves a lot of credit in terms of, we're talking about a team that's very multi-dimensional, but you've got a player here who's really multi-dimensional as well in Szoboszlai. Because I think, 66 minutes, it might be one where, you've got someone with the run, the ability of Salah. It might be one where you just sort of take your time and trot along here. Or if you're just a normal number 10, you just chill right here. But no, Szoboszlai wants to create, wants to work hard, wants to eat those yards and wants to exploit that space. And again, it's about starting in to go out or starting out to go in. And he knows that Martinez wants to get to him here because he's a bit worried about it. And as soon as he sees that body language, he's gone. Szoboszlai deserves huge credit because he's willing to kind of make that run. And he does, of course, make that run. And it leads to a great opportunity and a great counter-attack once again. So watch out for Szoboszlai this season, because despite his play being very selfless, meaning he may lose out on goals and assists, he will still be one of their most important players this season. Ultimately, Liverpool haven't shown any significant flaws to their game just yet. They've also demonstrated that they are multi-dimensional in the way that they can structure attacks, be that quick one-touch passing or direct attacks that move the ball. From the defensive third to the final third in the space of 10 seconds. My one question is, how will they cope against a side like Arsenal, who like to use that 4-4-2 mid-block? They make it very difficult to play through or even in between the lines. It's a challenge that they are yet to face, and they soon will. And if you haven't checked out this video from the Manchester United game, make sure you do.